Welcome to the Smarter Science of Slim, the scientifically proven program where you eat more and exercise less to burn fat and boost health.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim show. Today is going to be an exceptional show because it's one of those rare shows where we have a guest on and it is so much fun. I mean, all of our guests are fun, but there's some are just like these radiant elements that you cannot help but try to get back on the show. And today's guest is so radiant and so busy that I am so happy that she's come back to build off of our first conversation. Was a lot about food, and we're going to talk a lot about exercise today. And it's going to be really, really fun. She's a New York Times best-selling author. She's been all over the world and the web. You've seen her on Dr. Oz, Fox News. I mean, she's basically taken over the world, which is awesome. And the reason she is because her book, The Plan, is just changing lives all across the world, which is beautiful, as is she. And her name is Lyn-Genet Recitas. Lyn-Genet, welcome back to the show.
It's so great to be talking to you again.
Well, it's always a pleasure. And Lyn-Genet, had to have you back. I know you're jet setting. You got your private plane. You're just flying out. But had to get some time here before the holidays to chat with you about exercise, because I know you've gotten some reactions like I get, because our messages are so similar when we talk about eating, and it's kind of shocking to people and they're like, this is controversial. And we're like, actually, it's not when you look at the results and the science, and exercise is certainly no different. So can you just give us a quick overview of the divergence you've seen between what we're all told about exercise and what you've seen actually work?
Well, you're talking to a former exercise junkie. In my early 30s, I was running 50 miles a week in the gym 6 days a week. I would force myself to take a day off. And thankfully, I had a son and life got busier. I'd probably be dead going at that rate, or I'd have no thyroid left. But what wound up happening is here I am at the age of 48, and I exercise 3 times a week for 20 to 30 minutes, and I'm very structured in my exercise. And my body fat is exactly the same now as in my early 30s, and I weigh 5 pounds less. And what we found is, I'm not unique. What we found is the plan's all about tracking data. We all have our own theories, right? But at the end of the day, you can't argue with what you see again and again and again. And I started to notice when I was working with clients, especially after the age of 35, that many of the times their body wasn't responding well to excessive exercise. And in fact, we started to see certain markers that it seemed to be counterproductive. So we would see that their thyroid function would drop, their blood pressure would increase, if they had type 1 or type 2 diabetes, that their insulin would rise, and they would have weight gain in response to exercising too much. So we found that most people would do really well with a 30-minute run. They'd do great. They'd lose half a pound. We would see their BBT rise. We would see their blood sugar stable. We would see their blood pressure stable. All of a sudden, they exercise for an hour, and we see, wow, now you're stabilizing or gaining weight with the exact same foods, and whatever your health condition is seems to be getting worse. So we decided we were just going to run some tests about 3 or 4 years ago, and we found that people that exercise 5 to 6 days a week seem to lose 25% slower than other people. They actually sometimes caused weight gain, but their accompanying physiological issues would increase. So we really put everyone now on a pretty strict regimen that we will not allow you when you're working with us to exercise for more than that. And what we'll do is we will test later variable exercise as a variable. How does your body respond to the stimulus of exercise? And that's why you can see some people that are marathoners, and you look at them and you go, oh, my God, you are a runner. And then you see other people, and you're like, you can walk up a flight of stairs, right? Some people, in fact, can do these long amounts of exercise. Some people are built to run a triathlon or be an Ironman, but most of us are not. And in fact, most of us, because we have such stressful lives, our cortisol levels are so high that we're actually increasing our cortisol with this exercise.
So if I understand correctly, Lyn-Genet, there two things are really important. One, looking at what one person that is not us does and saying, okay, well, that works for them, so therefore it will work for me, it can lead to badness. And then also this message of just exercise more, just more. It sounds like more is definitely not always better.
Right. And, it's funny. I remember working with one woman, and for people that are deconditioned, I really start off with a small amount of exercise and see how they respond to it. And then we use their BBT and their weight, their basal body temperature. That's what BBT is. Their BBT and their weight as a gauge. I had one woman inflammatory to 12 freaking minutes of exercise. We actually had to cut her down to 8 minutes. Her body responded to that, and then obviously we developed a program so that she could become more conditioned. But when you see people and they're going to these exercise classes or these boot camp or they're spinning classes and they're actually gaining weight, which is just so common, not only that, but they're stressing themselves out. It's hard for people to allocate this time. And so many people are saying, you know what, I don't have the time to exercise for an hour, 4, 5, 6 days a week. I'm not going to exercise at all. And when you find that you only need to allocate small periods of time and that it's doable and that your body will benefit, that just helps on so many levels. Weight loss, endocrine function, and the whole nine.
And that's Go ahead.
Well, it was just, overtraining can decrease blood levels of L-glutamine and dopamine, and our body isn't able to repair. It can affect the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and it leads to thyroid dysfunction. It can increase cortisol. It can suppress metabolic activity, all kinds of craziness. And ultimately, it's going to start affecting in men their testosterone levels, and in women, it usually makes them estrogen dominant.
And what are let's get really specific here for a second here, Lyn-Genet, because I know you and I know the science, and a lot of our listeners are getting more and more familiar with the science. But let's break down. Let's go specifically with females here. And what is it about a very common scenario? For example, I'm going to wake up really early. So I'm going to cut my sleep back by an hour and a half. And then I'm going to go for an hour-long jog on pavement. And then I'm going to come home. What is that doing that may be counterproductive?
That's such a great question. Okay, first of all, on the plan, we're kind of crazy and neurotic, so we kind of have you measure everything. So you can actually see that when you cut your sleep by an hour and a half, let's say your basal body temperature is running around 97, which we considered somewhat functional, and you wake up an hour and a half earlier, and all of a sudden it's 96.1. Okay, already that's a sign that your body hasn't had enough time to repair, and your thyroid, which is responsible for activating every metabolic and cellular function, isn't at 100%. So already we're operating at a deficit. Okay, now, when you exercise too intensely for your body, what you're going to do is you're going to increase levels of cortisol. And we find this especially when it's periods of increased heart rate with no decreased heart rate. Now, because cortisol and our hormones really basically kind of come from the same place, which is an easy way of saying it, it's going to suppress some of our hormonal function. And in men, it will be testosterone. In women, traditionally, it will be progesterone. Of course, each person's unique. And then what ends up happening is that will start to affect our thyroid. And remember, a thyroid is a master gland. It's responsible for our metabolism, our energy, our sex drive, all this good stuff. So by exercising too intensely, we're just giving the thyroid and our hormones just a drop kick each and every time.
And Lyn-Genet, just a quick point of clarification for the listeners, because I know folks who listen to this show have a very precise, let's call it, definition of intensity. When you say intensity, is that more correlated to the duration and an uninterrupted duration? Or, for example, would doing a more interval-based, resistance training-based short duration, although it's high intensity, cause these same negative impacts?
You see, each person is really, really unique. And like I said, there are some people that can run an hour and a half and do really great. There are some people that do well with less sleep. That isn't the majority of people, but if you're that person, then you go ahead and literally run with it. I do find, however, that when there is no periods of decreased heart rate, that what winds up happening is that the heightened levels of cortisol and the oxidative stress, and oxidative stress is a big one, especially as we age, because our body just can't repair as quickly, is going to start to affect functioning. So I always like to tell simple stories because that helps. I, as you know, as I told you earlier, exercise nut, right? And here I am, I'm frustrated. I love that my business is so good. I love the kids. I love my life, but I'd like to exercise more, and I'd like to be effective with my exercise. So I decide I'm going to have a kettlebell instructor come over to my house and teach me kettlebells because they're cool, they're Russian, they're macho, and it looks pretty awesome, right? So I have a guy come over my house, and he teaches me kettlebells for an hour, and he does the traditional kettlebell style. Boom, 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 constantly elevated heart rate, kicking my butt. Next day, I'm up a pound. Now, when you're on the plan, you're actually going to know each day what you should weigh based on what you do. And that was just not normal for me. So I said, okay, I'll just put that in the back of my mind. And the next week, the guy comes over, he trains me, and at that time he's my fiance, and we're both up a pound, and Bill's up a pound for 72 hours, which is classic inflammatory response. So the next week, the guy can't make it. So I said, you know what, let me do the exercises he taught me, but let me do it the way I prefer to do it. I know that my body works best with 40 minutes max, and it works better with periods of decreased heart rate. So I interspersed the kettlebell activities with some decreased heart rate exercises. I'm down 0.6. That's the fun of understanding your physiological response to the exercise that works for you. Now, I could have taken one of my clients, and that 40 minutes might have been too much. Maybe 15 or 20 minutes would have been appropriate. Each person's response is going to be different. Some people will do well. Like we have this one couple in Canada, and they're both Ironmen, and she's an Ironman champion. Now, obviously, she does really well, but once again, she's not the normal. So when we're thinking that we need to go harder, faster, stronger, longer, that might not be true. And all I want to tell people is if you don't see your body responding, then you know that's probably not working with me. And maybe if I take it back several steps, I'll actually do better. Because what winds up happening, too, is, once again, going back to the stress levels, people are like, oh, my God, I'm so stressed out. I need to work out. If I don't work out, I'm going to kill somebody, right? So they go for that spinning class, or they go for the CrossFit class, and they have that short-term boost of serotonin, and they feel really good, right? But they didn't know that they exercised too intensely for themselves, so they've actually also increased their levels of cortisol. So guess who snaps a little bit more easily the next day at work? You, right? Oh, what do I need to do? I need to work out so I don't kill somebody, right? Short-term boost of serotonin, long-term you're raising cortisol, and it just starts this cycle. So when I work with, really avid exercisers on the plan, and they're fighting me that first week, Lynn, I need to do this, and by the second week, they're like, I am loving this. I'm exercising half as much. I'm losing 3 times as much weight. I actually have time to spend with friends and with family, my kids, or just relax. I mean, that's awesome.
Lyn-Genet, I can certainly empathize with this personally. I too was a chronic exerciser in my previous life. I was a personal trainer, and I kid you not, since I was at a gym, that was where I worked, I would exercise at least 6 days a week, often twice a day, thinking that, again, that more is better. And I can tell you firsthand, in addition to all the science we all talk about, even for me personally, I now exercise 1 day a week. And
oh
we
my
can,
God, that's awesome! That's awesome.
1 day a week, and I have both better metabolic markers than I've ever had, as well as my waist. At the time I was exercising, this was 13 years ago. At the time when I was exercising that amount, I had a 34-inch waist. Today I have a 30-and-a-half-inch waist. So
that's hysterical. So you and I are like twins.
Exactly. And Lyn-Genet, the one thing that I think is going to be really helpful here for the listeners is, so we've talked about these chronic over exercisers and how scaling back and doing it smarter can be beneficial for them. One thing I want to also clarify is for individuals who are not currently exercising or are not over exercising, I want to get real clear for these people. For example, let's say there's a person who goes for a 30-minute jog once a week. I believe our message is not just cut that in half. Our message is more like, you can't just drop quantity. You have to think about quality of movement, and there's a bit of a yin and yang relationship there.
Absolutely. I'm personally, I find that people do better with 2, 3, and sometimes as much as 4 times a week with small amounts, because most people need to get to a certain level of conditioning. Most people do need to have their cortisol lowered and serotonin boosted. But we are very very precise with what is effective exercise. For instance, when you bring up running, or what I consider the bane of exercise, the elliptical machine. We want to vary our exercise. Certainly, we want to increase muscular strength, which would mean some sort of weight training or something along those lines. We want to have a variety of exercises. We want to do stretching. We want to do a bunch of things. But certainly, I find that most people do well with anywhere from half an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours a week. And more than that tends to be too much for most people.
And the reason for it, when we say too much for most people, I think a key distinction that at least has been really helpful for me is oftentimes these archetypes we see in our culture are athletes. It is their job to do physical activity, and they have got precise coaching, and they've got some genetic predispositions that we don't have. And to think that it is even healthy for us to do the same things they are doing, it seems a little off base. Is that fair?
Right. Well, it's definitely a genetic predisposition, absolutely. But they also have physical therapists, they have massage therapy, they have nutritional protocols, they have all of these things that help guide them through this. But they're also not doing it in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Right, and so they have different stressors than we have. They don't have to commute 2 hours to go to work or work 2 jobs or do any of these other things. And in fact, that is their job, is to be at a peak physical performance. But also the level of injuries that they have, right, is pretty high. And there are people that are actually conditioned to do this. And when I work with people that even after I give them the data, and they're just like, Lynn, I just need to do this. And thankfully, that's only a small percentage. For those kinds of people, I'm going to say, do something like take Vobenzyme, which is a proteolytic enzyme, and will at least sort of eat away at the inflammatory process, because it is really causing damage to the body. It is long-term causing inflammation. And that oxidative stress, what it does to your cells and setting yourself up for cancer and for heart disease. I mean, we're just not talking, kind of stressing out your body. We're talking for a lot of people, this will precipitate some serious diseases.
And what's good news is, so we're understanding this key distinction now, which is a lot of these conventional forms of exercise are stressors and then need to be thought of like any other stressor, where it's not that we want a life of no stress. It's just that too much stress is certainly a bad thing. But if we're exercise junkies, there are other forms of quote unquote exercise that it seems we could be allocating our time to, like, let's say maybe yoga, for example, or stretching or Tai Chi, or these more, let's say lower stress, more restorative activities. Would that be maybe a good swap?
Well, that's funny, because that's the one thing I always talk about with marathoners. And it's like, why should I stretch? That could be another mile I could run, But you really do need to prevent injuries, because you're already putting, as you say, exercise is a stressor. You want your body to repair. So by including some strength, like if you're a runner, as you know, you should do a lot of ab work and a lot of glute work and some stretching to help facilitate the run and core strength so you don't throw out your low back and you don't get injured and all that kind of stuff. Having a variety of movement is just so important, especially because, we tend to move in such a linear fashion anyway, which is really not that healthy. So something like yoga and a little bit of weight and core training is just really important. Combining a balance of all of that. And if you are a stressed out person, then something like Qigong or Tai Chi would be amazing for you.
I love it. Well, Lyn-Genet, as always, this is a font. A font. I've been spending too much time in Microsoft Word. This is a fount of delightful truth, which is counter to the mainstream, but again makes a bit of sense considering where the mainstream has gotten us is a big fat mess. So what is next for you on this epic journey, and what's next for the plan?
Well, first of all, I want to finish your book. I'm really excited. It's great reading, and thank you for the advanced copy. Right now, we are working on a cookbook, and I'm handing that in a couple of months, and that's going to be exciting. We have people all over the world that are saying, please make the food plan friendly, and so we're doing that. And then the book after that is going to be the thyroid book, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into the endocrine system, how to nourish it, and how to exercise properly. And at least find your path for exercise rather than, once again, that harder, faster model that just doesn't work for a lot of people.
Brilliant. Well, where can folks go to stay up on all of this great up-and-coming stuff?
They can certainly go to our website, www.Lyn-Genet.com. We're being published in a lot of countries, so we're actually updating our website to give information for each country that's coming out. We're really excited. Korea, Italy, England, UK, Germany, great stuff, Spain. So we're working on that, but we always keep the website updated. You can always email us at info@Lyn-Genet.com. We're here to help.
Awesome. And folks, that is Lyn-Genet.com. Just to spell that really quick, it's Lyngenet. Again, Lyngenet.com. Lyn-Genet, as always, it's an epic pleasure. And thank you so much for all that you're doing to spread this message, this life-saving message all around the world, which is so exciting.
Well, I'm saying this exact same thing to you, brother. So thank you.
Well, Lyn-Genet, again, thank you as always for joining us today. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful follow-up with Lyn-Genet just as much as I did. And please remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon. Wait, don't stop listening yet.
You can get fabulous free SANE recipes over at carriebrown.com.
And don't forget your 100% free eating and exercise quick start program, as well as free, fun, daily tips delivered right into your inbox at bailorgroup.com. That's BAILOR group.com.